Hey girl, welcome to Finding My Best Self, the podcast where it's totally okay to show up in your leggings and messy bun, because let's be real, that's our uniform here. The only rule is to be unapologetically yourself.
And I'm Mandi, and joining me is Pam, the queen of finding the silver linings. We're here to share laughs, tears, and everything in between. Think of us as your new best friends with some stories to tell and wisdom to share.
From face palms to victories, we're diving into the journey of self-discovery, wellness, and what it means to truly embrace who you are. So whether you're conquering the world or just trying to find your phone in the black hole, purse, we've got you covered.
Because here it's all about encouraging you to lace up those sneakers, or don't, we're not judging, and join us as we explore what it truly means to own your confidence and find your best self.
So pour yourself a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Finding My Best Self. Today you have with me myself, Pam and Mandi, and today we're talking about something that's very near and dear to our hearts, and I know a lot of listeners as well, so it might be a little more of a sentimental episode, but it's something that we both know and we've talked about a lot, that it was something that we really wanted to talk about, and today's the day. So before we jump in, though, we wanted to ask that if you've been listening for a while, we would greatly appreciate it if you have not already left us a review to please do that. It helps to get our rankings up on the podcast network. And just so that way, again, so we can continue to reach out to more women and help to get our podcast out there. And if you're new to the show, welcome. We hope that you enjoy this episode. And if this episode resonates with you, obviously, please share it. I think this topic today is going to be something that a lot of people need to hear. So, without further ado, today we're going to be talking about relationships and marriages. And just to preface this whole conversation, we just wanted to let everybody know that Mandi and I are not by any means life coaches or marriage counselors. We are just doing this out of wanting everyone to know that you're not alone and that we all have ups and downs in our marriages and relationships, and that's normal and it's okay. And we just want to share the things that we have personally done in our own relationships in order to make things better. We won't be speaking on any sort of behavioral characteristics like narcissism or gaslighting, etc. We're not experts in that, so we're not going there. We just want to speak on what we have personally seen has worked for us. And out of respect for our spouses and the privacy of our marriages, we're not going to go into any specific, details or conversations or disclose anything like that. Just again, things that we've actively done in the past or are currently doing to continue to work on and better ourselves and our marriages. So, first and foremost, open communication. And I guess we're just going to start there because it's something that is in my personal opinion, and I think Mandi's as well, is communication is key to a good marriage. I think it's the foundation of a good relationship. And I'm not going to say marriage because I am married, Mandi's married, but just a relationship in general. And really knowing what the 5 love languages are. And if you don't know, I highly, highly recommend the book. Both my husband and I have read it. We read it together, and it is a very, very great book to read because it changed a lot of things for us. It opened up the door to a lot of conversations that had never been had. I don't know, did you and Kenny ever read that
Yeah, we
book?
did it together. I mean, it's been years, but that it hasn't changed. We kind of, we just are what we are and we need what we need in every season. And so I forget it. I mean, it's been so long ago, but I'm almost glad that we did it at the beginning of our relationship because it has, like you said, opened up those conversations that when we aren't getting what we need, you kind of refer back to it, And so I think that has been, it has opened that conversation to kind of remind them like, oh yeah, you remember, I'm words of affirmation. Like I need to feel,
Yes.
loved. I need that kind of just constant reassurance, and his is physical touch. And so we were just talking that ours are opposite, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so that's so if for anyone who doesn't know the 5 love languages are, and it's the way that you as a person receive love, right? And everyone has all of these love languages, but it's just that if you prioritize them in what's most important to what's least important, and not saying that we don't want to have all of them,
Right.
it's just there's always going to be an order. What's crazy is that when I read that book, I was very surprised because when you get to the very end of the book, there's like a little quiz that tells you, what's your top, and then all the way down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I was very surprised because I didn't think that my number one was what according to the quiz was my number one. So it was a little eye opening for me. But the 5 love languages are physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts.
Mhm.
Help me out here because I'm going to forget them all.
Oh, man. Physical
We
touch,
should have wrote, we should have wrote them down.
I
Dang it.
know, we should have.
But hold on. It's
Check it out.
physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts.
Oh,
Oh gosh, why
somebody
am I
is
drawing a
listening
blank?
and like, "It's these 2." I know, and
I know
it's
somebody's calling us out.
we
Like, you're
we
talking about
have
this and you don't
remembered
even know.
ours. Yeah. But
Well, so I guess what we're trying to say at the end of the day is knowing what what your significant others is, because what tends to happen is that when you like to have love a certain way, one of them is acts of kindness,
okay, yeah.
showing acts of doing things, and then the fifth one's gonna come to me. Gifts, receiving gifts,
You said that
receiving
one.
gifts. We said that one.
Yeah. Yes,
Ah, okay.
acts of
Anyway,
kindness, gifts. We'll put it in the show notes. How about that?
yeah,
We'll
I'm
have
gonna
it
put them
down
in.
then.
I should have had them down. Dang it. Anyway, it's because apparently those aren't important to me, so I'm not
I was about
remembering.
to say they're not ours. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not. That's why I'm not remembering. They're way on the bottom of the totem pole for me. But what happens is that I tend to want to show love the way that I receive love, right? So for me, I receive love by physical touch. And it's just, the little things like the hand on the leg while we're watching TV, or, just walk past me and rub my shoulder, like the little things. Like it's the little
Yeah.
things when it comes to physical touch. And for Corey is he's like you, and it's the words of
Mhm.
affirmation. So, but I struggle with that, right? So it's opened that communication up for us, for him to be able, when he says to me, you know, you haven't been giving me those words of affirmation, or, you haven't been, you know, some we're getting better in that. So he says those things to me now, but what it sounded
Mhm.
like before is you don't love me, or I don't feel
Right.
loved, or
Right.
you're not doing the things. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? This prior to, right? This is what happens. What do you mean you don't feel loved? Like, you don't do things to make me feel loved. Okay, well, what
Mhm.
is that? And so
Mhm.
before you read this and have an understanding, so now he can say, you haven't been giving me or showing me those words of affirmation.
Mhm.
And again, that's hard for me because it's not a way that I receive love. So it's really hard for me
Right,
to
it doesn't come
articulate those
easy.
things, right, and give it. Right. So
Yeah.
I know that I have to make that effort to do that because that is how he receives love. And, a little bit
Mhm.
of vice versa for him. He's never been a super touchy feely kind of person where I'm like, I need you to touch me, and so
Yeah.
I'm able to say, you've seemed kind of distant lately and not very
Yeah.
affectionate, and so he knows. And so that's why knowing those 5 love languages and
Mhm.
knowing what your partner is and what you are is really important, not just to know, but to also be able to communicate that better. Because just being able to use those words makes it so much easier to understand. It makes it easier for you to be able to hold the mirror up and say,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I haven't been doing that, as
Mhm.
opposed to, just very vague and saying, well, you haven't been, I don't feel loved. Well, why?
Right.
Because you haven't been doing things. Well, what things? Like, what do you mean?
Well, and honestly too, like, because 'cause we're opposite. I don't even notice it half the time. So I feel like you don't have that awareness whenever
Mhm.
it's not your like number one thing that you're focusing on. It's literally like, oh, well, I thought I was, but it wasn't to either the degree that we need it, or it's the fact of, well, we're just not putting it a top priority because, it's just like, I don't need that. So it's just, I don't, it's weird because it's not until you call each other out and like not, that's that communication, because you don't want to say, oh, you just don't love me. That's why, we don't have physical touch, or you're not telling me all these things. It really goes into, I've noticed this and it hasn't been to the degree that we were doing it. So like, is there something going on, or, or you just, it's just not in the front of your mind to do it. So, it's like it
Mhm.
all stems back to that communication, because if you're not, if because that can stem, right, that can be like a resentment almost, because I know for me, I need to have those conversations and feel that reassurance that I am loved. And so when we're not in that communication state, I just get like, I mean, I've gotten better, but in the past, it's very much like, oh, well, I'm just not going to talk to you because you're not wanting to tell me this, that, or whatever. And
Right.
so then you get into that like silent
Yeah.
treatment, which stems. And then next thing you know, you're blowing up and he's just like, where is this
Correct.
coming from? Yeah.
Right,
So it
and then
goes both
everybody's
ways for
caught off guard, or
everyone's.
he's caught
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
one's caught off guard. Yeah. Correct. Correct. It stems and then it's a big blow up.
hmm
Or on the, you know, part that too, or it's just the burying things, right? It's like
Oh,
the
yeah.
little things that one this one little thing that bothers you and you bury it.
hmm
Oh, whatever. Whatever. I'm just gonna let it go. And then the next little thing, oh, I'm just gonna let it go. But guess what? You don't really let it go. You don't really
No, it
let it
just
go, right? It all you sweep it and you sweep it and you sweep it. And then all of a sudden it's that one little thing that just push you over. And then the argument happens. And then it's like, well, you did this and you did this and you're bringing up stuff that happened weeks ago,
they're like,
even
"What?
though
Like, when did
you're
that
mad
even
about what
happen?"
happened today. Right. Like, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about this that happened
Yeah,
today. And now we're talking
you
about
bringing up
all these other
stuff from
things. So
10
yeah,
years
that's what
ago.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So
But
so communication. So for and again, we're both very similar in this. So this is, we're going to kind of go into this. For me, for us personally, it was when to communicate, right?
mhm,
Because when you have children, if there's children involved, if you both work and uh, you know doing self-care practices and all of these things, right? It's when do you find that time to have those conversations? And it doesn't always have to be the tough conversations, like, something that's bothering me. It can just be conversations in general, like, how was your day? Let's talk about what's up with the kids. We have, what are our vacation plans for this year? Like, whatever conversations, or just being silly, whatever, when to have those. And for us, it was at night. And I was just like, that is when, instead of going to bed and watching TV, or, him watching TV, me playing on my phone, it was, let's turn the TV off. And even if it's just, even if it's late and we only get 5 minutes, in those 5 minutes, something is better than nothing, because
mhm,
every day we can end the day on a good note, right? And just having those conversations, it has changed a lot
mhm,
in us having those nightly conversations. It has opened that door, because I think too, when you go to bed at night, the day, the stressors, the chaos is
mhm.
over with, right? The kids are in
Yeah,
bed, not in your bed,
mhm. Yeah. Oh,
right?
no. No, we cut that out a long time ago.
Not in your bed. The kids
And
are
that's
not in your bed.
huge, because I
It's
know
hard.
we co-slept for a little while whenever it was Chloe, my oldest one, with us, and it I'm not opposed to it at all, because it is like a bonding experience and all these things, but there comes a point in time, because you like you just said, there's all those stressors from the day, that really is the only time that you get together, especially when you have
Alone.
little ones. Yeah, alone. And so it's just such a huge shift in your marriage whenever you can just have that alone time together. And like you said, it's mostly at night, which is almost a good thing because we've tried, waking up and doing the coffee thing together in the morning. We've tried after
Yeah.
school, but the kids wake up or they're
Mhm.
interrupting or they need
Mhm.
homework, all these things. So at night, like you said, tucked away, nice and tight in their beds. And then that's when we can actually sit and have a conversation without being interrupted 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, no kids in the
And
bed.
and then because you've wound down from the day, you're much more relaxed
Mm-hmm.
and open to listening and receiving and understanding
Yeah.
when the other person says, you know, can I tell you something that's been bothering me or something that you
Mm-hmm.
did? And another thing in regards to that is bringing it up and immediately. We've had this
Mm-hmm.
conversation of if something's bothering you today, tell me
Mm-hmm.
today. Don't wait till
Yeah.
tomorrow. Don't wait for a week from now. Like, tell me today.
Mm-hmm.
Because then that conversation can be had, that discussion can be had in a much calmer manner.
Yeah.
Because I can honest to God say that we have never had an argument, like an argument at night when we've had those conversations at
Mm-hmm.
bedtime. It's always
Right.
been very calm, understanding, communication, conversations. Like our arguments have always happened when it's been in the middle of the
The
day,
stress
something
of the
got
day.
brought
Yeah.
up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the middle of the stress of the day. So it had like if that is one thing that I can advise anyone to do is to
Mm-hmm.
just have those nightly conversations. Like I said, even if it's just for 5 minutes,
Right. Yeah. I think
even if
too,
it's
the
just for 5 minutes.
conversations, like literally, I think we've gotten to the point, and it's taken forever for it to be like this. I think it's a lot of growth for both of us, but
Hmm.
to even have the conversations that you don't necessarily want to have, because it's
The hard
it's
conversations.
it's the hard ones, but it's not even like you're attacking someone. It's literally like, "Hey, this is how I'm feeling, and you may not like what I have to say, but this is how I feel. And now, like, let's talk through it and like try and find the root cause of it instead of me just like holding on to this for days, weeks,
Hmm.
months, and then something coming of it, like becoming of it, that's going to make it 10 times worse." And so I feel like just in the
Yeah.
last year, since Kenny's gotten back from this deployment, that has completely changed for us, where we have probably had some of the hardest conversations we've had in like the 18, 19 years we've been together this year.
Hmm.
And they have not always been pretty because it's things that like I may not want it to hear or he may not want it to hear, but it has made us stronger
Yeah.
because there's no limit. It's like, hey, let me tell you this. And it's like, okay, we don't have to be as real as we said we were, but it's a good thing because we feel that much more comfortable to just say it, like just spit it out. We can take it. We can take whatever we need to say and then dissect it from there.
Hmm.
But if you're not saying it and you're feeling some way by yourself, especially when it's
Hmm.
related to your relationship, it just causes like a residual like situation that you're going to eventually have to deal with later anyway. So,
Yeah. And and then outside of that too, like I said earlier, is it's also just about having other conversations too, right?
mhm.
I know something that we've done that I think we've both really enjoyed is, and y'all laugh at me if y'all want to. I got it off of TikTok. It was an idea off of TikTok. So yay, TikTok. Please don't get rid of TikTok government because there's so much good
We
that
need
comes
it
from it.
for our marriage
Right?
advice.
This episode is brought to you by MBS Fitco. Excitement is in the air at MBS Fitco as we prepare for our upcoming launch. We're introducing a line of premium activewear designed to seamlessly fit into both your workout routines and daily life. Our versatile collection is perfect for your workouts and equally suited for your day-to-day tasks, ensuring you look and feel your best, no matter the occasion. It's not just clothing. It's a commitment to self-care and embracing your best self. Be the first to experience the fusion of style, comfort, and functionality. Subscribe to our VIP list and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for insider information and exclusive perks available only on our launch day. Dive into the show notes for all the links you need. MBS Fitco is more than just activewear, it's a lifestyle. Join our community and be part of our exciting journey from day one to celebrate fitness, self-care, and your hero within. Don't just wear it, live it. All right, now let's dive back into this episode.
But anyway, so it wasn't even somebody's, I don't even know what this was. It was one of those little scroll posts from one of those motivational pages or whatever, but it was like, 5 or 7 questions, whatever, to ask your spouse. So I was like, I'm going to screenshot them and I'm going to ask Corey at nighttime or whatever. So I did. And so he was laughing though. He was like, where did you get that from? And I'm like, I came up with it. And so I told him, I was like, I showed him. I was like, I got him from TikTok. But then, so he liked it so much that he was like, well, I'm going to come up with questions for you. And I was
That's
like,
fun.
okay. And it was like relationship questions, like, what's one thing that if you could change one thing about me, what would it be?
Mhm.
Or, what's the one thing that I do that you like the most?
Mhm.
Or, what's one thing that I do that you really don't like? And it's giving them space to have real, open and honest answers with you because
Yeah,
I'm
speak
asking.
freely and not
So
expect a
yeah,
reaction. Yeah.
yeah. So that was nice. And so that was something that we recently did that,
I
that
like
we
that.
really enjoyed. So just, some suggestions about the communication. And another thing too, before we move on, is not, when you're having those hard conversations, to not do the finger pointing, right? And it's more so just trying to get the other person to know that you're not saying that they're doing something wrong, but more so for them to understand how something makes you feel. And
Mhm.
so it is when you do this, I feel this way. And it gives
Mhm.
them the opportunity to say, okay, well, my intention is not to make
Right.
you feel that way. This is my intention, because sometimes it is us and our own
Mhm.
feelings getting in the way of, or our own interpretation of something that was said or done, as opposed to, and so it's because playing the finger pointing game it never turns out well. And
Yeah.
so it's just having, when you have those conversations, just having that open heart and open mind to being understanding of the other person's feelings. And obviously this goes both ways, right?
Mhm.
So, you have to have those conversations with your spouse. And then as another, I guess, on another side of communication, one of our big rules that we have completely cut out. And don't get us wrong, like, we all make mistakes, right? Like, we all
Mhm.
say that these are the things that we want to do in our relationship, and we're human, right? We
Mhm.
fall back, we forget, in the heat of the moment, we
Yeah,
send a
and you go back to
text,
old ways.
whatever. And
Yeah.
so it's just constantly reminding each other, like you said
Mhm.
earlier, you have to remind and be like, hey, I haven't been getting those words of
I need
affirmation,
this,
you know.
please.
So just reminding, but like, our thing is no serious topics in text,
Yeah.
because y'all, we have had we have text messaging is has caused so many arguments that didn't need to be had. And it
Mhm.
caused them not even to be, first of all, to become arguments that didn't need to be arguments, but
Right.
also for those arguments to be really, really bad.
Mhm.
Because, y'all can admit, don't lie. When that one text comes through, and then the next, and then that's it. Like, y'all going at it, right? It's who's gonna come up with the bigger and better whatever.
Uh-huh.
And so it
Yeah.
ends up being so much worse, right? And then it's like an all day affair or whatever if you're at work, and it's just not good.
And the tone
So
is never right, because
it
even
there's
if
no
they
there's no tone.
initially said it with nothing, we took it a certain way, and
And
so
that's
then
what
it
I'm
just
saying.
spirals.
So
Yeah.
it starts an argument that didn't even need to be an argument,
Right.
just because the way that you read it, you interpreted it in a
Mhm.
way that it didn't, and so there's just none. And so
Yeah.
when something does come up, I'm like, hey, like, is this something that we should probably talk about later tonight? And then
Mhm.
you, as a grown person, needs to, because I know that there's the people that's like, you know, how are you going to bring that up and not tell me, or
Yeah.
now that's going to ruin my day, because now I have to think about all day long that, there's something on their mind. Well,
Mhm.
then that's okay, because I promise
Yeah.
you, it coming out in text is not going to be good. Like,
Right.
wait until later, wait until bedtime when
Mhm.
the day is done, the stressors are over, and not to mention when someone has more time to think on
Mhm.
something that's bothering them, 9 out of 10 times, either A, they're going to realize that it really wasn't that big of a bother to begin with, or
Mhm.
B, they're going to be able to articulate and communicate what is bothering them much better than if you would have pulled it out of them right then and there.
Yeah.
And that is the truth. And that is the truth for anybody, because I
Any
know that there's
relationship.
any
Yeah.
relationship,
Any
any
relationship.
person, when someone says, I need a minute, you give them a minute and
Mhm.
just let them collect their thoughts. Because when you try to pull something out of someone when they're not ready to talk, I promise you, you're going to make things so much worse. Because I know I'm that way. Like,
Yeah,
I
or
need
just
time
shut
to think.
down. You just like have a block and you just are not going to listen or let anything in after that
Yeah.
anyway because you have to stop yourself and internalize so that you don't end up saying something you don't mean, act in a certain way and just making sure that you're being, as rational in the conversation as you need to be.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
So,
and,
definitely no serious topics in text. Like, text message is only for the everyday, "What's up with the kids?"
hey. Yeah.
Joking around, saying, "I miss you, can't wait till you come
Mhm.
home," that type
Even
of
though I
stuff.
got something to say at bedtime. It's like you just don't wanna say now, but I love you. It is though, and
Yeah.
I think having that conversation at night has led us to not so much our schedule now, but before, I always wake up before everybody, and so I just, like, leave little sticky notes around, like, if I make his coffee or the lunch, and just putting something we talked about to kind of, like, end it on a good note. Like, even if we got
Yeah.
into a discussion about something that was hard. It's always coming from a place of love. It's never coming from, I'm trying to point you out for this or I'm trying to attack you on that. It's always, this is going to help us grow and be better. And so I want you to know that this comes from a place of love and how much I appreciate you, love you. And so that's where
Mhm.
like our little notes come through, you know, we
Yeah.
try and do them a couple days a week just to, like, once again, affirmation person here. I need that. So yeah, the communication piece is just literally, if you had to sum it up in one, that would be what it is all about.
Yeah. We do the sticky notes too. I do the lunchbox sticky notes, and then he does the random every now and then I'll find them wherever he
Mhm.
leaves them. So, and it's something sweet and it's something nice. I do it for my
Yeah.
kids too. Jillian loves that
Yeah.
when I leave her little notes and stuff. Another thing too, I guess this is a little bit outside of communication, I guess, but it all really and truthfully, all of these things really fall back on communication. It's just communicating all of these things, but not trying to change each other or our beliefs or our ways.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, I think that you as a person can choose to want to make a change in yourself. If you feel that you need to work on something, but you should never be the one to tell someone else, and not even just
Mhm.
in your relationship or your spouse, but anyone for that matter, that they need to change anything, the way that
Yeah.
they look or talk or act or dress or what they think or believe in any certain topic. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you chose to be with this person for who they were then.
Mhm.
So why try to change them now? And if you can accept them for who they are, then, you know,
Yeah. And I think that that plays a lot on knowing your person and knowing, because I mean obviously you get with a person, you know that they have flaws, you know that they have strengths, weaknesses, all that thing. So you can't beat someone up about something that either they're trying to work on or they're not self-aware enough of it yet. And I think
mhm,
that's why whenever you're with someone, you want to play off your strengths and weaknesses, because I know for sure he's stronger in things that I'm weaker in. And so I have
mhm,
watched him go through different things, and it's like, oh, you kind of pick up hints or different things and vice versa. And so it's really neat to see how that plays into each other later on. because if you don't push someone to be a certain way, act a certain way, do certain things, then they can become who they're supposed to be. And you're kind of along on the journey for it, and you can kind of see how that progression has happened. And so it's been really interesting over our marriage just to see how much we both have grown. I mean, thinking back, we are completely different people than what we were. And it's not been perfect, obviously. No one's marriage is, but to be able to work through those different seasons of where we were trying to figure it out. And it was hard and it
Yeah.
was tough, but I mean, we can finally kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel right now where we get each other and we're not trying to hold each other back. And you may not understand what I'm trying to do, or I might not understand what you're trying to do, but I'm gonna back you up. And I don't know if anybody's seen Robin Big. Did you ever watch that on
Mhm.
MTV
Mhm.
where he tells
I
them like,
did.
I'm backing you, Sacred G, or whatever? That's been like, we used to binge watch that. And so that's been our thing for years. It's like, all right, I back you, Sacred G. Like, no matter what it is, it could be the stupidest
That's
idea
cute.
ever. And it's like, okay, I back you, Sacred G. And so, it's just those little things that, like, you're crazy. I may not understand what you're doing. And I'm sure this has been more Kenny looking at me
Yeah.
saying that, but I'm going to back you no matter what. And whether you fail or succeed, like, I'm going to be there right along the way.
Okay, so I love that you brought this up because this was not on our list to talk about, but you mentioned about evolving and changing. If you do not know this already, I am here to tell you that you as a person as well as your significant other are always at any age, it doesn't matter how old you are, going to be evolving and changing
Mm-hmm.
constantly. And if you can look at yourself today and say, "Oh, well, I'm the same person that I am 5 years ago," then okay, but I promise you in some way, shape, or form, you're not.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to marriages and relationships, it's falls back on that communication piece of being able to let your spouse or your significant other in on these are the things that I'm doing now
Mm-hmm.
in order to better myself or do whatever. Because I know for me personally, again, going back, what is this, 3 years ago when I really three really more so 2 years ago when I really started to take a really deep dive into my personal development and reading and journaling and spiritual development and stuff. My husband was like, what the heck is this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're not the same person or whatever. And that was just because at that time, like, I didn't really communicate that with him as to
Mm-hmm.
what I was doing or why or where I was mentally and why I felt that I needed that. And so
Yeah.
had I had that conversation with him and communicated with him like where I was, he would have been much more open to or understanding of what I was doing and not feeling like you're
You're
pulling away from
completely
me. Like,
different. Yeah.
yeah, you're different and you're not like, you don't love me anymore and or whatever. Because in his eyes, I was checking out, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't that. It was just that I was working on me. And he didn't know because I didn't tell him or
Right.
express that. So again, back to the communication. But everyone is always evolving and changing. So that's what I guess I'm trying to say is that if your spouse, if you say that you're not the same person anymore or whatever, they're probably not, and that's probably not a bad thing, right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
they're working on themselves and trying to be a better person in most cases, right? In most cases, I'm sure that's just the case.
Yeah. It's for sure having that conversation too, that because I think a lot of people get scared because they're thinking, okay, well, we're growing apart. Because now, if you look back 5, 10 years ago, we're not the same people, and that's like we
Right.
got married then, or we became you were my partner then, and like, what if you are going to grow out of me because you're growing out of this older version of yourself? And so I think that
Mhm.
communication, as far as no, this is just what I'm focusing on, like all these different aspects of life, but I want you along on that journey with me, and I want to
Mhm.
talk to you about it. And I think we've talked about this, like, they're our best friends. So it's like, I want to tell you all these things, but I have learned that some things are just not for us to discuss. Like, I know talking about
Mhm.
teaching, Kenny could care less, but you have like your different people you go to for different things. But as long as they're understanding that, like, this is what I want to do, this is who I want to be, and they're still supportive of that, then
Mhm.
it can work and you can make it through kind of like those transitional moments in your life and just kind of take each other along the way and just be supportive.
Okay, so you just made me think of something, taking each other along the way and going on the walking through life together. There was something that I saw years ago, and when I saw this, it like for whatever reason, it struck me and it has stuck with me since that day. And it's the image of a man, and like it's, two parallel highways, right? We all know the
Mhm.
parallel highways, right? And there's a road, there's two roads, and there's a man in one and there's a woman in the other. And y'all are both walking, and he's on his journey in life and you're on your journey in life, and you combine hands in the middle. And it's
Mm.
the idea of, I want to, you stay in your lane and I'm going to stay in
Yeah.
my lane, because I have my own goals and my own aspirations, and I have my own place in my life, my God given life that I want to go. And so do you.
Mhm.
But I choose to be with you and to walk
Yeah.
in this life together. And that hit me so hard, because
Mhm.
it's not jumping in the other person's lane with them and we're going to
Right.
ride off together, right? It is,
Yeah.
we're going to join hands and I'm going to continue to support you on your journey while you support me on mine, and we're going to walk through it
Mhm.
together. And I was like, that is so beautiful. So if you've never seen that, it's a way to
That
think of
just
it.
hit hard too because I struggled with that cuz I mean obviously Kenny's retiring out the military and I had to, like, my purpose, goals, dreams had to be on the back burner because of our lifestyle. And I struggled with that for years. And it's not like a resentment. Like I was still, like, you do you. He was, he was hitting all his goals, doing everything. And I supported him along the way. But it was still that kind of like thing in the back of my head that's like, well, what about you? Like you have all these goals, you have all these dreams. But I just kept having to tell myself, like, it's just not my time. And it really wasn't. Like, because there's no way that I could have simultaneously happened at the same time because I had to be the person for my family. And so, it's one of those things where you almost have to tell yourself those things as you're going through it, because now I can look back and be like, okay, now I get it, because everything that has happened has literally brought us here and to where we are right now. And you don't see the end, or you don't see the big picture. And so it's telling yourself that it's not him being selfish or me, having to sit back and just watch as someone else is taking off in their career or just in life. It's just not your time. Like there's a time and a purpose for everything. And I think that's where the
Mhm.
faith driven part comes in, because I didn't understand that, but I also didn't have like a strong relationship with God to really know that. And so,
Mhm.
I'm telling you, this whole year has been transformational in general, but it really
Mhm.
had me stop and think that everything I've done has prepared me for my life's purpose or dreams and things to be successful or just to feel fulfilled. And it's because of everything. It's not because of I had to wait, it's because I needed to wait. So,
Needed to wait.
mhm.
So speaking of God, that is another topic, just because, and I'm going to speak on behalf of my marriage, because my husband and I, not that we are both believers. I know y'all know I am, because I talk about it all the time. But he is not. He absolutely believes in God as well. But there are topics that we don't necessarily agree on when it comes to religion, and so those are the things that we just choose to, I guess I don't want to say necessarily not talk about, but we just kind of know, right? Because there are certain
Mhm.
things that we don't agree on. But for the longest time, church was hard, right? Because he's one religion, or I shouldn't say that because they're really the same, but he likes to go to one type of church. I like to go to another. And so we've just agreed that, we'll go to this type of church together. So it's just the compromise, right? It's the compromise
Mhm.
of choosing to do that together,
Yeah.
even if it's not 100% agreed on, just because at the
Mhm.
end of the day, it's important. And going back to the conversation, that was a conversation that we had about how
Mhm.
important having God at the forefront of our marriage was, and that needed to happen.
Yeah.
We're also really big on not telling each other what we can or can't do, even
Yeah.
from all the way down to the littlest thing, all the way up to the biggest thing. Now, we may still have conversations about big things, big purchases, big life changes, me starting
Mhm.
a business. Like, we still have those conversations. We may not necessarily agree, but I
Yeah.
will never say, you can't do that. Or,
Yeah.
you know, that's just,
Yeah,
if we're going to
same
agree
with
to a
us.
no, we're going to agree together to a no. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's a conversation, and then either we're both going to agree together that that's probably not the best thing, or, if he's like, this is what I want to do, I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah.
that's your, because again, it's his life. As
Yeah.
much as we are married and we're together and we are one, we are walking that path together. But,
Yeah.
if there's something that he wants to do, I'll never be the person to stop him ever.
Yeah. And I think that goes into to just also like having your own life within your marriage and being
Yes.
able to do things separately. I feel like that's so hard for a lot of couples or just partnerships in general is you feel like I guess as moms too, you just feel like you have to hold it all together. So like if you go to take a friend's trip or if you go to go do something for yourself, everything is going to stop and shut down. And the whole part of having that support system, village that helps you, do all that. I mean, the whole thing is you cannot just pour. And we've talked about this numerous times and not take those moments out for yourself. And I feel like in a marriage too, that you have to give each other those times to go and to be with their friends or their family and that time separation from you, because that's going to enable you to become independent within your own bubble or be able to kind of hone in on what you need to do for yourself. Because I know like the first couple of weeks of a deployment or any kind of weekend away, I'm like, oh, I get to watch what I want on TV or I get to go do this or do that. And it's just having those moments to yourself and to feel like it's okay to take time for yourself. And so
Yeah.
and that goes for being a couple too, to take time away from the kids to go do things. Like this weekend, we're
Mhm.
going on a trip, short trip, but we know that in the next couple months, things are going to be crazy. And so we squeezed it in. Could we be doing other things? Absolutely. Like there's always things that we need to be doing or, places we need to be. But if we don't carve out those times for each other, it's either going to drive, something between us or even individually that you don't feel like you are your own person within your marriage or within your partnership.
Mhm. Yeah. It's that was a conversation Corey and I had when we first got together. It was something that I realized was a huge missing piece of my previous marriage.
Mhm.
That I was just like, that was really big that I was missing. And we never prioritized any of that, but it was we need to have alone time scheduled,
Mhm.
planned alone time, whether even if it's just a weekend once a year. It doesn't have to be a week long trip or whatever, but planning those date nights at least once a
Mhm.
month, planning at least one weekend away per year and having that alone time. But we also need to have time together with friends,
Yeah.
time together with our family, and
Mhm.
time apart.
Right.
You go with your friends and I'm going to go with mine, because if you can't have a balance in all of those different areas, you're going to have issues. Period.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be issues in some way, because either you're going to be feeling that you're missing the alone time, or you
Mhm.
don't see your friends enough, or you don't have enough
That
family time,
resentment
like
plays in.
something
Yeah.
that
Because
yep,
one's doing it or one's not. And then you feel like, okay, well, I never get to do anything or they're always doing something.
missing
And
piece.
so that communication again, if you're not saying like, hey,
Mhm.
it's been a long time since I've done so, whatever with my friends, like I might go plan, you know, a dinner or a weekend trip. And it's that other person should want you to have that outside life too. And just, I don't know, like like you said, like fill your cup, make sure that you're good, because then that's only going to bring y'all closer together in the long run anyway.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast the other day that like really hit home for me because it's something that I've struggled with my whole life because I am this overachiever or this person that when this new thing comes to my head, I want to do it and I just dive all in. And it's always been like work. And then I'm not going to say it's always been self care second, but work and then self care. And then like kids, spouse, and God was just kind of there. Right. And then not
Yeah.
necessarily in any kind of order. It was just all. And so this podcast, was this guy, this very successful guy and he was talking about that. He was like, 9 years ago, my wife and I almost got a divorce. And he said, and that was when I had to, really hold up the mirror. And it was a huge reality check for me to say that I personally did not have my priorities in line. It wasn't my wife,
Mhm.
it wasn't anybody else. It was my fault. So that was kind of a little bit of a check for me because, God should come first in all
Mhm.
things. And I know this, right?
Yeah.
I've seen God work in my life enough. And then your spouse, and then your kids. And
Mhm.
this has always been, I do personally feel like I've always, well, since this marriage, this has
Mhm.
always been a thing for me. And I read, and I don't know what book it was. Gosh, I wish I could remember that talked about this because when I read this was after my second marriage, but after my first marriage, prior to my second. When I was single, I read this book that talked about putting your spouse before your children because
Mhm.
I never really understood that. And they go into detail about that, if you can't be a good parent to your spouse, I mean, oh gosh, you can't be a good parent to your kids if you and your spouse are not okay.
Mhm.
And that's so true, right? Is that
It is.
because if not, if you're giving it all to your kids, then your spouses, there's going to be
One day
issues,
they leave, and then what are you left with?
right?
Because that's been my thing. Like, you know, my kids will eventually move out of our house, but we are together forever. And so it's like I can't put more effort into one or the other because,
Right.
our relationship's the foundation. And then, like you said, we can provide for them. So, and of course, God is first in that because then that's the only way we're gonna work is if we put him
Correct.
first. So
Yep.
it's that I know I'm Catholic, so it's like the Holy Trinity. They're talking about like
Mhm.
God first, spouse, kids, because that it all kind of works together. If you don't have that kind of hierarchy on there, it's just not
Yeah.
going to work. It's not going to flow.
Yeah. And so it's God, spouse, kids, self-care, and then work. And he was like,
Hmm.
when I tell people this and they're like, well, you have so much work to do and you have so much going on. Like, how do you manage your work if you put that last? And he was just like, because if you schedule out your time and it is, everything, whatever I have to do to be grateful and God and reading the Bible, taking care of my spouse or whatever, and then kids. And he's like, in self care, he was like, if you're left with, 4 hours in the day to get work done, he's like, I promise you that's gonna be the most productive 4 hours you've ever had in your life. He's like, because when you put everything else first, and he's like, and you leave that time, he was like, then there's no time for, scrolling social media or,
Hmm.
stopping to go do something else or, just there's no distractions. It is just
Yeah.
full on. I got 4 hours. Like this is like boom, boom, boom. And I was like, dang, like that's very true. And I know
Because
this because I also know that I'm the ultimate procrastinator. And I know
yeah.
that I am
Oh yeah.
very capable of knocking out 10 hours of work in 2 hours because if I wait
Hmm.
till the last minute. So I'm like, like it was a little reality. I held that mirror up. And I think that's one thing that at the end of the day, in any relationship, yes, it always goes both ways, right? Both people
Hmm.
have to participate and be active in all these things. But I think at the end of the day, it's always being able to hold that mirror up
Hmm.
and look at yourself and say, what can I do to be better? Be a
Hmm.
better person, be a better wife, husband. How can I be better? And that's
Hmm.
what's most important is you being able to check yourself, right?
Yeah. Really. Literally.
I mean, I've I know I've done it many, many times. Or even just, when those arguments happen, or when, he says things like, I really don't like when you say this or you do this, or it made me feel, and then I have to kind of sit back and be like, dang, you know, even like when we were having the conversation the other day
Yeah.
about the kids and the guilty
Mhm.
parenting or whatever, like being able to hold that mirror up and say, man, like I shouldn't have
Yeah.
reacted that way or said those things or
Mhm.
whatever. So
And it's not being reactive, because I feel like that's another like instant response that we have, especially if you've dealt with other relationships in your life that have worked out that way, or you felt attacked, or it really was coming from a place of like trying to point you out on something you did. We have to retrain our brain to say, okay, this is coming from a place of love and like understanding. Like they really just want me to be aware of what I'm doing. They're not trying to hurt me, attack me, call me out per se. That, going back to, this is only going to make us stronger, because if we don't have these conversations, or if I don't know, I don't know, and I can't change, I can't do anything to help it. And so you can't look at it as if it's just another argument. It's just another, I can't do anything right. I'm always wrong. It's never, if it's done in a loving way and not condescending, things like that, then it can be productive. It can be a productive
yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah. And I think, just like Mandy has said, like, things can be very transformative in your marriage
Mhm.
and in your relationship if you put in the work, if you put in the
Yeah.
effort, if you keep trying to have those communications, if you keep working at it, things can change. And the more you try, the more you give it to God and the more you pray on
Mhm.
it and put in the work and the time and the effort, things can change. You just have to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
So again, at the end of the day, we just wanted to open up and share just our personal experiences, things that we've gone through, and what we've done to help in our own marriages. And again, to let you know that you're not alone, because I know that there are a lot of people that may have issues in their relationship or struggles, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's normal and it's not talked about.
Yeah. Not
And because
enough.
because it's things that happen behind closed doors, and we feel like we can't open up and talk about relationship struggles, and we should, because
Mhm.
you need to know that you're not alone. And, and if our tips and tricks and things that we've done help you, or you think it may help someone else, please share the show, share the episode. I know this duo was a little longer, but I hope that you're able to take something away from it today, even if it was just one piece of what we
Mhm.
said. I know this is something that's, our marriages are very sacred to us, and it's something that's near and dear to our hearts. So we hope that you've taken it all in with open arms and no judgment. And
We're not perfect, I promise.
we're definitely not trying to toot our own horns and say that things are perfect, just that we've done a
Yeah.
lot of work and put a lot of work in, and are always striving to be better people and
Mhm.
better wives. So again, if you haven't left us a review already, please do. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And like I said, share the episode if you like it. Share it with a friend who may need to hear some of these things. Other than that, that wraps up today's episode. We will catch y'all soon. And as always, you are strong, you are capable, and you are worthy. We love you, and we're endlessly rooting for y'all.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of Finding My Best Self. It's been real, it's been fun. We hope you found a piece of your story in ours and feel a little more inspired to chase after your best self.
And don't forget to share this episode with someone who needs a little boost today or a good laugh. And make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode.
Nothing says owning your confidence like a new outfit from MBS Fitco. Check out the show notes for the link to shop our luxury athleisure. Go ahead, girl, treat yourself.
And if you've got a story to share or a topic you're dying for us to cover, drop us a line. Our email is in the show notes. Just reach out and let's keep the conversation going.
So, until next time, keep owning your confidence, embracing the chaos, and remember, the best version of you is just an episode away.
And again, we love you and we're endlessly rooting for you.